beautiful Paulette handbag from Shambhala. So today we're going to complete the interior of the bag, and then once we do that, our next video will start on the exterior. So making good progress as always. So to make the interior, you're going to need both of your lining pieces. You should already have the little pleats sewn on, basted on if you will. And you're going to need your zipper overlay piece. Add some double-sided tape to the back of it. I used 3/8 of an inch because I don't want to have 1/2 inch and possibly get it in the seam allowance. My machine can handle it, but if you can avoid it, avoid it. So this is 3/8. You're going to need your completed gusset that we sewed, or we're supposed to sew in our last video. So it's just the bottom and the two sides sewn up together. Easy peasy. And then you want the top stitch, just like you're going to do on the exterior as well. So have that piece ready. You're going to need your assembled zipper pocket for the interior. We talked about this in the previous video. So just have this piece ready, and it should be nice and pressed flat and ready to go. And last, you're going to need your slip pocket pieces. That's going to be the two pieces that we talked about and the band. So, but we'll cover that in a little bit more detail in a moment here. So first of all, let's get our overlay attached to one of the lining pieces. Like I said, I've already added some double-sided tape to this, so I'm going to stick it on there. And I also have marked the center of this. So find the center of your bag, put it on your mat, take a ruler, and you're going to come down 2 inches. 2 inches. Oops, make sure it's centered. Sorry about that. 2 inches. Our center line is right there. Like so. Okay? Take a little time to make sure it's perfect because we don't want to have a off-kilter zipper. And then you're going to affix your zipper placket overlay. Make sure it's even. And you're going to press it in place with your fingers just to make sure it's secure. And we'll go to the sewing machine. We're going to top stitch around the exterior. And then we're going to cut out the center, and then we're going to attach the zipper pocket and then complete the inside stitch. But we'll do all of that together. So let's put this aside for a moment. And let's talk about the slip pocket. Now the slip pocket you already have cut out per our last video. One piece is your taller piece, is 1/4 of an inch taller. And then on your shorter piece, we're going to attach the 7/8 inch by 9 inch piece of vinyl to the top. And then we're just going to sew it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. Then we're going to fold it back. Can't press it, but we can finger press it. And we're going to top stitch it, just the top part to kind of keep that open. And then we will put these two pieces right sides together. Oh, so as I was cutting this out, I realized that this fabric, even though it's decor weight, is a little bit on the thin side for a slip pocket. That's going to have lots of activity with the phone and such coming in and out. So I decided to fuse some Decaville light to it. So I would suggest that you do that too if your fabric is on the thinner side too. So go ahead and get those pieces ready, and then I will see you at the sewing machine. With our slip pocket, got a full bobbin in here, and we're going to have a regular stitch length, 3.5 or so, and we're just going to sew 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. use an edge guide foot, I just use the machine's markings for this. All the way to the end. And now you can cut off the excess vinyl, like so. Keep our area tidy. And then we're just gonna flip it up. If you wanted to, you could take some double-sided tape and glue it down. I'm just gonna finger press it. And we're going to, with 1/8 of an inch stitch, I'll do a little bit longer stitch this time. You could do a top stitch, but I'll do a 4 on this one. And I'm just gonna use the edge of my foot as a guide. And we're gonna go. And we're just top stitching. We're sewing through the seam, and that will keep it from folding up. Okay, let's go. Verify that you have the seam underneath the foot. And get in the habit of putting your machine back to the normal stitch length. And we have our pretty slip pocket, the top part almost done. And there. Next we're going to put these two pieces. This now has a decaville. We're going to put these right sides together. They should match up to be the same size. If they didn't for any reason, just go ahead and trim off the bottom. So now we're going to clip it in place. All the way around. And now we're going to sew with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're going to start at the bottom. Going to do a little jog. I'll show you that. So, and we will leave a space for a turn. All right, so we're going to get this out of your way. Hopefully you can see everything well. We're going to just start, again, check your stitch length. Start, about 1.5 inches in. You just want to leave room for the turn of the pocket. And we're going to go up, go back, reinforce your stitch. Now we're just going to go about 1/8 of an inch around. When you get to the corners, you want to do 1 pivot stitch and then continue. Go on up to the top. You want to repeat that pivot stitch for all of the corners. It will help you have a nicer point, not be rounded or as rounded. So give it a pivot and continue 1/8 of an inch. Pivot, continue. Now we're going to come about 1.5 inches in, pivot, reinforce your stitch, and that's it. We'll take it off the machine, give her a little haircut, You just want to trim off a tiny bit off each corner. Pretty standard stuff. So, get rid of these stragglies. And now we're going to turn this bag, not this bag, we're going to turn the slip pocket through the open hole. Not that hard, Kelly. Come on. All right. Yeah, I like the feel of the Decaville light. Kind of gives it a little bit of extra. Okay. Now, take a pokey stick, chopstick, gently fill out the corners. Don't go too hard. And then go ahead and fill out the rest of the bag. I keep saying that. Old habits die hard. The rest of the slip pocket. When you're done, you have this very nice slip pocket. So what we'll do in a little bit is we're going to, oops, gotta pop this out some more. We will turn this little turn hole in, put some double-sided tape just to close it up. We won't sew it closed. Then when we put it on the bag, at that point in time, this will all be closed up nice. We'll do a divider and such, but we'll do that together. So, beautiful kind of faux piping slip pocket for your bag. I'm going to give it one more poke. So, get that corner nice. You can see the corners are nice. They're not rounded. Well, a tiny bit, but they look nice. Okay, so we're going to come back to that piece. Now let's work on our overlay. Put this here. For the overlay, because it's vinyl, we're going to need our Teflon foot. So I'm going to use the 1/8 of an inch edge foot. Use this guy here. Pop him on with our quick release tool. So nice. Get our thread through the hole. And we can put our stitch length to about 4.5. Get all this out of the way. Now we're going to use the edge foot and slowly go all around the edge of the overlay. You want to leave some long tails starting with, because we're not going to back stitch. We're going to come all the way around, meet at the stitch, and then pull our threads to the back. So let's just start. Doesn't really matter where you start, but I try to start on the side myself. So just going to go, and we're going to take our time following the curve, using our knee lift and our pivot, and go. I'm on a 4.5 inch stitch length. So we're just going to pivot. And sometimes it seems tedious, but it's worth the effort because it's going to look so good when you get all done. Now we have the long stretch. Easy peasy. When we get to the curve, we'll start taking it slow again. Use our knee lift. Just take it a stitch at a time. With the combination of the edge foot, your pivoting, and your knee lift, you're going to have a beautifully stitched overlay. And as you do them over and over, it'll become much easier. So be kind to yourself. It takes time. I've made some really bad ones, but they're getting better now. Okay, now we do the long easy stitch. And when you come up to your other stitch, you want to go right to it. Make sure you know it's dark. Right to it. We're going to take it off the machine. Going to leave long threads. We're going to, at our desk, take these threads with a needle and bring them to the back. But we can do one more step while we're here, and that is that we need to cut out just this little bit of fabric that's inside the window box. Now normally I cut it out first, but it's hard to see on this fabric for me, so I thought, well, I'll just do it after. Doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead and just kind of get it going. You want to make sure that you are cutting just inside this area, not too much past that, okay? So we'll just go ahead and start cutting. Fold it in half to get a start. And cut away, so to speak. Just take your time. Don't cut your threads. Don't cut your overlay either. You can kind of see it from here too. Okay, so you get the general idea. Cut, cut, cut. You want your fabric to not be showing inside the overlay once we're all done. Like I said, I think it's easier to cut it first, my experience, but it's all the same in the end. Okay, so just double check your window, clean up any extra bits you might have, the fabric showing, and then we're going to go back to our desk and we're going to get the zipper pocket ready, and we'll finish up this part. So, making progress. Hope you're having fun so far. I'll be back in a bit. Back to our desk. Here's our completed, mostly, slip pocket. It's looking good. I gave it a just a short little press. I got the ironing board nice and hot, and then put this face down to try to get the vinyl on top. So it's like a faux piping. It looks good. A couple of clips in there just to kind of hold it in place temporarily. We can take those off. And we have our little hole down here. So let's go ahead and put a little double-sided tape. That will just help us when it comes time to sew it together. So this fabric is crazy pretty, but I'm sure it must be kind of hard to see. But you know me and my tiger prints, right? So put a little piece of tape in the seam allowance there. Press it in place. Take it off. And then you just want to kind of fold these in and put them together. Make sure the edges are nice and aligned. And if it looks good, if you have any goobers, fix them. I don't. Okay, so you can put your clips back if you want, but the DST will keep that in place. So we have our slip pocket. Now we need to put it onto the other lining piece. So we have our lining piece in front of us, And it's going to be centered. Hopefully you know your center. You're going to put your ruler about 3 inches, not about, 3 inches down. So we'll measure this. Make sure this is all lined up. Okay. And you're going to put their slip pocket centered right where that 3 inches is. But before you do, something to consider, because I like to keep my phone in my slip pocket. And so if we put our phone here and we kind of eyeball that it's going to go down there about that far, you can see that there's about 2 inches available, and then we're going to lose about a 1/2 inch when we put it together. So up to you. I think I'm going to go 3 1/4 inch. We have room before we start messing with the bottom, so I'm going to do 3 1/4 inch. Your phone may be shorter, it may be taller, so play with it before you commit to it. Okay, so you have your center marked. We're going to go ahead and we're going to pin this in place, centered, and then we're going to use our Hera marker to identify where we're going to stitch for our phone and a pair of sunnies, and then when that gets done, we're going to sew around the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and do all that and come back and not make you watch it, just for the sake of interest of time. So that's going to be our beautiful slip pocket, the woven fuse, the deck of the light, excuse me, really adds a nice body to the pocket. Okay, so put this aside. Now we're going to come back to our zipper overlay that we sewed earlier. Remember that you left the threads long, so we're going to go ahead and with a needle, we're going to bring these threads to the back of the fabric. And that will look really nice. You know, if you had dark fabric, like if it was black or something, and maybe you could backstitch and it wouldn't show, but it would show on this. So we're going to do it the way that Sue taught us how to do it. So we have it threaded, E55. We're going to poke it right down where it started to the back. One done, and then we'll do the other one. Sometimes you have to have a nice straight cut on the thread for the Sellrick brand. And now we're going to poke this through the same hole, pull it to the back. Now we have no threads on the front, no back stitch, and now we can just tie these threads off in the back. We can just do that with a couple of knots. So and then we'll do this one. If you wanted to, you could sew the, or knot the two together if you're so inclined. This is not going to go anywhere. Get it? Not? Sorry about that. Okay. Oops, let me just do one more for good measure. All right, so now you can go ahead and kind of trim off the threads. You don't have to get down to the nub there. They're fine. I did, later on, I trimmed off a little bit more of my fabric around the window box in the back, so that now you have a beautiful window box here. Okay? And put this aside. We have our pre-made zipper pocket. It's all nice and interfaced with woven fuse. You can tell I kind of Frankensteined it, which is just fine. Use up your scraps there. It's not inexpensive. So you want to take some double-sided tape. You can use that score tape. Kathy sells a really good brand. This might be it, I forget. But just something to kind of help the zipper stay in place. Put it towards the very top because we're not going to actually sew over it. In fact, we might even, if I remember, remove this tape once I sew it. Okay. So. And we'll just take off the top for now, the top piece. And we're going to place our zipper placket right on top of it, making sure that we are even with the tape and the alignment of that, like so. Make sure your zipper pull is out of the way, not getting glued on. And then you just kind of finger press it in place, and then we're going to fold this up. You cannot see, I'm sorry, but anyhow. And then we're going to remove the tape on the bottom, so, and fold it down. Again, watch out for the zipper pull. Okay, and just secure it in place. Make sure everything is even and you're happy with it. And you'll have this beautiful overlay. You have your zipper pocket facing up and facing down, so make sure that they are opposite of each other. Take the time to make sure that your zipper is perfectly centered. And then one last thing we're going to do before we sew up the pocket and also finish the slip pocket is we're going to do a little tip that I taught you last time, but we're going to do it again. Repetition is always important. So you want to use your little leather marker pen, and you're going to put a dot about 1/8 of an inch away from each of the corners. This is going to help you when you sew the zipper on as your pivot marks. So just a little tip for you, and I think you'll find it very helpful. So verify everything is nice and straight, and then we're going to go to the sewing machine again, sew up these pieces, and we'll be tackling the gusset next. So we're back to our trusty sewing machine, and we're going to sew the slip pocket and the zipper overlay. Let's start with the slip pocket. So I have taken my Hera marker and I've drawn a line. I don't want to use chalk if I can avoid it, so I can see the line, you can't. So we're just gonna, I have my Teflon foot here because I do have a little bit of vinyl and I don't want the stitches to be tiny. So we're going to go ahead and sink the needle, and because there is a small variation in the height of my fabric, I'm going to use the hump jumper just to get it going. I'll do a couple of stitches, go back, forward, and then I'm just going to follow the line that you can't see, but trust me, it's there. And then we'll do some stitches on the bottom. And that secures that in place. If you wanted to, you could go up the other direction and do a second row of stitches, but today we'll just keep it simple. Now we're going to start on the corners here. I like to sew at an angle. This will basically kind of reinforce that area where, again, there's more stress because we're constantly going in and out. So I sink it, get my hump jumper. I'm just going to go at an angle across and back a couple of times, like 2 times. And back. I guess actually 3 times so I can get back to the other seam. And then one last time. Now we're just going to sew around the edge of the pocket. Little uneven height there, just get it going. I'm using the edge of my foot as a guide, so it's about 1/8 of an inch foot. So it's nice and close to the edge. I have all these pins in here. Get right to the bottom. Give it a pivot. And now, as we sew the bottom up, we are closing up that turn hole as we attach it to the lining. Yes. Take the pin out. And you can see I am taking my sweet time. I'm not sewing slow just for you. I like to sew with intention. Just enjoy the process. I'm not in any hurry. Okay, so now we're going to sew up the last bit here. As I get to the end, we're going to stop right before the band and sew at an angle. And we'll do that just like the previous time for a total of 3 stitches to reinforce those corners. So we'll pivot. I'm going to go ahead and use my hump jumper. I'm going to go get it out the way, go back. And one last time. That is it. Now, I think my fabric is too dark to show you, but I'll do my best. See if you can see. Probably can't. Anyhow, you want to make these little things here at the angles. There. It's dark. But now, we'll give it a little bit of a haircut. Looks so good. Very happy how that turned out. And now we have a perfect slip pocket. One that can hold our phone on this side, hold your phone here, maybe a little pair of glasses or some pencils, what have you. Okay, so now we're going to attach the zipper pocket. So now we're going to work on the interior slip pocket. So we previously attached this to the lining. We then put the zipper pocket in my office and have made our dots so that we can know where to pivot. And I'm going to leave long tails because just like before, we don't want to do a back stitch. And we're just going to start. Now I use this foot and not my edge foot because I have found that there's not enough traction when I use the edge foot, and so then you end up getting those little tiny stitches. So this foot has worked well for me. Make sure your zipper pockets are both extended, and we're going to increase our stitch length to about 4.5 so it matches the other one, and we're going to sew. When you get to your pivot point that you drew, pivot. Sure beats eyeballing it. Keep your threads out of the way. We're just using the edge of the foot as a guide. Taking it slow. We're going to unzip our zipper so that we don't hit it. Go into our third pivot point. Coming across to our fourth point and down the final stretch. You want to make sure that you match up to the exact same spot when you come in on the end. We can zip this up now. Take it slow. And take it off the machine. Leave nice long tails, just like before. We're going to pull these threads to the back, but I can show you this here. So isn't that pretty? Looks nice. Nice pretty zipper. So what you're going to do next is you're going to come over here and take some clips. I have some clips here. And just kind of align the edges up here. You do have a good inch or so extra. You can just cut that off. So here, a ½ inch. And then you're going to do this side. A ½ inch down. And don't close the bottom up because we're going to pull the final lining through this, up through the pocket, so that we don't have a raw edge in the bag. Now I want to be able to pull my threads through, and I have to do that when the zipper pocket is not closed. So I won't sew this for you, but you know how to do that. So just sew it up on both sides, and we have completed our internal zipper pocket. So I'm going to go back to the desk and we're going to work on putting the gusset on, and then we will have completed our lining. So there it is. She's pretty, huh? Hard to see. Yay. Okay, so we are back to the sewing machine. I have gone ahead and attached the gusset, lining gusset, to the zipper pocket lining piece. You could do it whichever one you would prefer. If you do the zipper pocket one, kind of maybe make sure that you clip it out of the way so it doesn't by accident get stuck when you're sewing this up. And we're going to sew this with the 1/4 inch seam allowance starting at the top for about, an inch too. And then we're going to increase to a ½ inch seam allowance all the way around. And then we want to grade back to that 1/4 inch. Very important that you keep that 1/4 inch seam allowance when you are sewing the tops, because it needs to fit nicely in the bag. Then I'm going to attach the other gusset. I don't think I need to have you watch me do that, but you are going to leave open a good chunk of the bottom, almost this much if you will, because we're going to birth the bag through that large area, and then we're going to bring everything up through the pocket so that we have no visible seams when we when we complete our lining. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this up. Got our 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're going. Always back stitch, reinforce stitch. And now we can slowly increase to a ½ inch. My gusset, it fit perfectly. Sometimes they don't, so you always want to start, match the centers, and then pin it in place or clip it in place as you go up to the top. And if you have to, just trim a little bit off the top. But mine fit perfectly, so kudos to Sammy, huh? Okay, so getting around here to the corners. Sometimes people don't like these gussets because, well, you know, they can be challenging sometimes, but I will say this pattern was written really, really well. So you're not going to have any puckers or anything to worry about because Sammy did a great job on this. So just take your time, keep your 1/2 inch seam allowance. Spread it out as you go. People ask me a lot, that's just fine, what machine this is. This is the Juki 8700. This is a single needle machine. It does one thing, and it does one thing well, and that is sew a straight stitch. And it's just, to me, the best machine. Well, besides my 1541, because she can hear me over there. So, no, I like the 1541 a lot, too. But this machine, I tell you, it's just fun. It makes sewing fun. So if you can get one, they run about, I think $800 with all the bells and whistles, and it'll just make your sewing life more fun. We're coming around the other rounded area. No wrinkles. Just let it kind of ease in place. Sticking with our 1/2 inch seam allowance. Keep it nice and smooth. And then as we near the top, don't forget we need to get back to our 1/4 inch seam allowance. And we'll do that right about now. And back stitch. Yeah, you can. Go ahead. You can trim this first of all. You also can clip some clips like this, notches, if you will. That will help with the easing of the corners. But it looks good. Check for inside for any wrinkles. If you have any wrinkles or puckers, rip it out and fix it. But let me see before I have to eat my words. Oh, looks good. All right. So your assignment is to attach the other lining piece to this one, to this gusset. Leave the bottom open, maybe as far as the 2 top stitch seams as a guide, and then we're going to, that will conclude the lining, and next week we're going to work on the exterior, which means piping and all those good things. So, all right, well done. Yay for you. We'll teach. Well, you didn't think I was not going to show you the finished lining, did you? Of course not. So I have turned the lining right side out so you can see it. So here we have our beautiful zipper overlay. Got the, opens up nice. You can see your pocket in there. Nice light colored pocket so you can see your stuff. Zips up really good, clean. And then on the flip side, we have our slip pocket. You can fit your phone in here. Like I said, maybe a pair of sunnies or reading glasses if you're old like me. And then we'll just have a beautiful, simple, fitted gusset with the matching pleats, which is real nice too. So I hope you had fun making the lining. It really wasn't that much. It wasn't hard, I should say, and you're going to have a really good looking lining. But up next, we're going to work on piping and putting in that top zipper, so things that you probably have been waiting for, but I'd like to get the lining out of the way first. So we're done with the lighting. Catch up with me if you can, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.